I have been looking somewhere else.
Look no further, Nancy. For all your land transaction in Liberia, the Liberia Land Authority is the best place to look. In fact, you can visit the Liberia Land Authority head office on Ashmore and Gerda Streets intersection, or the Liberia Land Authority sub-offices across the 15 counties of Liberia with all your land wahala.
I'm running now to the Liberia Land Authority head office to know more about my land business.
The Liberia Land Authority, your one-stop shop for all your land transaction.
Marie, what happened?
Marie, that my leo, my grandpa girl to be way chalekitan. Nana, if you don't wear, guess what? You are trying to go for so long. The people they tell us that they get it. I know what to do, Maurice.
You hear what name matter here?
What about name matter, Maurice?
Land matter is a 1-hour program that explains to you the land red law, the Liberia Land Authority Act, including the Act Against Criminal Passion of Land, other land-related issues.
Wait, Maurice, let's see you talking. I want to say they break it down. Hey, come to my
land matter. That program on Freedom FM 87.9 every Wednesday at 3 p.m. When you change to that station that time, they can explain to you about the land rights law. Land law means the law that covers land. To tell you how you develop the They can also tell you about the Liberia Land Authority, meaning the real people that we responsible for all the land beneath Liberia. You also talk about the criminal attitude in there, but not going to be selling people there, so people can take people there and sell and get a fake deal. Everything they will explain to you in all of them related issues.
See the one I understand on Wednesday and during the weekend Saturday. If I put my radio on, if I call Freedom FM, the people will better explain to me because people are they are well. The people will be able to
they will explain to you, they will get you changed before you ask them.
Oh yeah, what a pleasant way to welcome you to the program Lands Matter here on Freedom FM 87.9 with me, Thomas Kojo. Land Matter is a 1-hour news program that explains to you land rights law, the Liberia Land Authority Act, including the Act Against Criminal Passage of Land and other land-related laws within the country. Remember, the regulations and guidelines for the land rights law is to keep Liberia at peace and to continue the development. This afternoon presentation of the program, The Lands Matter here on Freedom FM 87.9, it comes to you every Wednesday from 3 to 4, and they repeat on Saturday, 7 p.m. My name is Thomas Kojo. I'm here today. We bring host to the Executive Director of the Liberia Land Authority, Mr. Stanley, is our guest this afternoon. And as a matter of fact, this program comes away every Wednesday. Every Wednesday we'll have new breed of people coming in from the Liberia Land Authority to tell us more about land issues within this country. So taking a break, we'll come back, go to our guests this afternoon on the program Lands Matter, where we'll discuss the related issues.
So you answer you Marie, what happened?
Marie, that my leo, my grandpa girl to be way chalekitan. Nana, if you don't wear, guess what? You are trying to go for so long. The people they tell us that they get it. I know what to do, Maurice.
You hear what land matter here?
What a pleasant way to welcome you back to the program Lands Matter. Yeah, like we said, we have the Executive Director of the Liberia Land Authority, Mr. Stanley. Good afternoon, and what a pleasant way to welcome you to Freedom FM.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to appear on this maiden edition of the program. It's always a pleasure for me to interact with the full state, especially the electronic media, in an attempt to disseminate some of the information that we have at the LA. It's a pleasure.
Lands Matter has been of major concern in this country before you people came into fruition to settle land dispute. We want to know, how is the Liberia Land Authority doing at about this time?
Well, the Liberia Land Authority, like many institutions of government, is faced with a number of challenges that we dwell with. But despite the challenges, despite the constraints, I think despite the tight fiscal space, we are trying to make the best of what we have available to us.
You being the Executive Director at the Liberia Land Authority, do you care to tell us more your role and responsibility as Executive Director there?
Whereas the executive director of the LIA have multiplicity of functions. If you take a look at the act establishing the Liberia Land Authority, I'm responsible for the day-to-day operations of the LIA.
Okay.
In or under the supervision of the chairperson. Okay. I'm also the head of administration, and in addition to that, I'm to ensure or to work along with other commissions to ensure that the mandate of the LIA is implemented to the fullest. And some of those activities and programs that will enhance the implementation of the mandate of the LIA are implemented.
Well, having said that, we thought to know more about the Liberia Land Authority since coming into existence. We want to know some of the reasons that led towards the establishment of the Liberia Land Authority.
Very good question. Very good question. We cannot discuss the Liberia Land Authority without referencing or without saying a bit about the land reform process of Liberia. Because the Liberia Land Authority is a byproduct. It is one of those key deliverables of the reform process. Let me take you back a little, at least to place the discussion into some context. As you may be aware, by, let's say, when the Ellen administration came to power back in 2006, numbers can recollect, she came with a lot of reforms program affecting the governance of this country. And one of those areas that she felt needed to be reformed was the land sector. And that responsibility was given to the Governance Commission through a technical task force that was put together by the late Dr. Edmund Soy to study some of the key issues, some of the contentious issues pertaining to land tenure in Liberia. And from 2007, when that task force was established, up to 2018, they did tremendous work in terms of public consultations, going across various regions of Liberia. And in the consultations that were undertaken in 2008, to be exact, they crisscrossed almost all the 15 counties of Liberia. And one of the key recommendations that emanated from that public consultation was the need to establish a land commission. That basically gave rise to the establishment of the Land Commission in August of 2009. That commission was given a broad range of responsibility, but specifically to make some policy recommendation for the consideration of the government. And so between 2009 and 2013, the Land Commission got to work and started looking at the land issue. What sort of recommendations, what sort of institutional recommendation can we make? And the focus basically of the Land Commission at that time, the work of the Land Commission was on three fronts. One, looking at land policy, looking at land law, and looking at the institutional arrangement of land in Liberia. And so, what happened was a number of research was undertaken, public consultations were undertaken, and then, if my memory can serve me right, we did extensive consultations in 2012. That basically led to the development of the land rights policy. Because as you know, the issue of land rights is a contentious issue in the land history of this country. I do not want to go way back with the establishment of this country. You always had a rivalry between the settlers group in terms of their land rights and then you had the tension with the land rights of traditional or customary communities. So our focus then at the Land Authority was to basically determine who has ownership rights to land in Liberia. So we came up with this category, or with this policy, that categorized land ownership into four: public land, government land, private land, and government land. That was one of the key deliverables. But then you needed a legal framework in order for it to be enforced. And then in 2008, 18, to be exact, you had the Land Rights Law. And then the commission, or the Land Commission, went further to do an assessment of the various agencies of government that were providing, or that are providing, or that were providing land services and had land functions in Liberia. And following that assessment, we determined that you have well over about 10 agencies of government that were performing, and that of course had a very negative impact in terms of effective service delivery. And so the recommendation was to create a one-stop shop for all land matters. That actually gave rise to the establishment of the Liberian Land Authority in October of 2016. So the Land Authority brings together those land administration functions that were performed, for example, by the CNDRA. CNDRA is the Center for National Documents and Records, or what in Liberia most people call the archives. But they were involved in the registration of land. So that function was extracted and brought under the Liberia Land Authority. The same happens with the Ministry of Mines and Energy. The whole land component was extracted and brought under the Liberia Land Authority. The same thing happened with the Ministry of Internal Affairs, with the land commissioners that you have all over the 15 counties of Liberia. Their function was basically the allocation and management of public land. That function again was brought under the Land Authority. And we are still in the process of actually absorbing other land function from related agencies of government.
Well, what all you have said, with abundance of land crisis and dispute within this country, what are you guys doing at the Liberia Land Authority, the decentralized program that will stop the issue of land dispute within the 15 counties of Liberia?
Well, in the first place, disputes will always be with us.
But what are you guys doing to curtail it?
From time in Monrovia, just wait. You talk about decentralization. Again, I always like to look at the legal framework that established the Liberia Land Authority. Now, wish I had a time. But the Liberia Land Authority is not only concentrated in Monrovia. We have a decentralized structure where the Act provides for the establishment in each of the political subdivisions of this country. That is, in each of the counties, a county land office that would serve as the administrative arm of the authority at the local level. The Act also provides for the establishment in each of the political subdivision of county land boards. As I speak to you, out of the 15 counties, in terms of the offices that we have at the local level, we have pretty close to about 12 functioning agencies. 12 functioning offices.
Out of 15 counties?
Out of 15 counties. It's a process. When you start operationalizing these offices, you need to empower them. Empowering them means giving them the necessary support.
Are they getting the necessary support from you?
Well, very, very tight situation we found ourselves in. Again, from the beginning, I talk about the tight fiscal space, budgetary constraints, the bulk of the funding that we get from government. I like to be very, very clear. Almost about 90-91% is strictly for what? Compensation of staff. And this is something that cut across all agencies of government. But For the LLA, we have been blessed to some extent that we have some donors that are supporting certain programmatic activities. And through project interventions, we have been able to make some strides, even at establishing some of these local offices, putting in some basic infrastructures that are in the process of being done.
Somebody listening will say, you talk about other organizations supporting the Liberia Land Authority to strive and really get there. One will want to know the name of some of those organizations. Then 12 out of 15 counties are functional, like you said. What are you guys doing to reach out to the remaining 3 counties to make it 15 out of 15 to get well functional in terms of solving land matter within our country?
First, let me answer the first question. The land sector is one of the sectors that has a bit of support from our international partners. Currently, we are on the verge of closing a 5 years Liberia Land Administration project that was supported by the World Bank, or that is being supported by the World Bank. We also have the Inclusive Land Administration and Management project that is being supported by SIDA. SIDA is the Swedish International Development Agency. And that particular project is being implemented by LIBERIA is the land registration and survey and mapping agency of the Swedish government. They are working along with us. LIBERIA. They are working along with us in terms of building the capacity of LAA and trying to introduce some institutional changes and structures at the LAA. But for the World Bank, we have benefited a lot in terms of support. And the World Bank, or the World Bank project support, has focused basically in 3 areas. You have this broad support for the Liberia Land Authority, and then that can be categorized. First, we have capacity building. They have been helping us, trying to train some of our staff, both internally and externally. They have been supporting our legal reform process in terms of hiring international and national consultants to help us develop basic regulations, basically for the implementation of the LRA.
Okay.
They have been assisting us in terms of operational support. Operational support meaning they have provided some vehicles, almost about 11 vehicles, to undertake some of our operations. They have been giving support in the area of the organizational development of the LAA. And even they have been giving support with respect to the renovation of some of these county offices. I'm happy and pleased to note that the bank is supporting the renovation of 5 out of the 15 county land offices. The World Bank is doing that. It's part of actually reforming our decentralized structures. In addition to that, the bank is also looking at the area of strengthening our land administration system. When I talk about our land administration system, I'm basically talking about those systems that deals with surveying, with mapping, with land valuation, with land registration. We have to see how best, or we are working along with the best to see how best to bring improved services to our people, to bring improved processes and systems to our people. And that's exactly what they are doing under the component that deals with strengthening our land administration system. It might interest you to know, if you drive from here to the Fender campus of the university, through the bank support, the LAA has been able to install a code system, and that code system will go the long way in improving measurements when it comes to survey. They are even in the process of helping us to develop a base map for Liberia. So there's a whole lot of things that our international partners are doing. With respect to the Swedish project, They too have been helping with capacity building. Staff have gone to a number of countries for study tours, even to Sweden. They themselves, they are working along with our technical staff, especially in the Department of Land Administration, to see how best to some of those things that are happening in Sweden today can be contextualized into the Liberian environment. And then we will see how best those things can be put at the LIA. So in addition to the two that I've just mentioned, we are also getting support from the United Nations system, mainly from the UNDP and from UN Women. I just had an opportunity just before I came in studio today to have a brief discussion along with the commissioners and other technical staff with the new country representative of UN Women. In addition to that, you have other donors such as Landesa, and there is a laundry list. And of course, you have our NGO sector that too are giving some assistance to the land authority.
Let me draw your mind back to something that should have been said previously, asking about the kind and type of land we have in Liberia. So my followers, those listening, want to know the type of land we have in Liberia. Then when it comes to identifying your agency, how do you identify private and public land? Because this has been the issue of land, major land crisis within our country.
Okay, that's a very good question. As I told you, we have 4 types of land in Liberia.
Oh, okay.
And that, of course, can be traced to the land rights policy that I told you about that was adopted in 2013.
Okay.
And even under the present legal framework, because the policy is modeled on that, the law rather is modeled on that of the policy. So you have one private land rights, which of course many Liberians are acquainted with.
Okay.
Under private land rights, you have the bundles of property rights. That is, as an owner of a property, you have the right to exclude others. You have the right to use the land, of course, subject to some restrictions. You have the right to exclude others, etc. Those are what you call bundle of property rights. And then you have another category we call government land. And then we have another category we call public land. Now, let me expand a bit.
Yeah, I want you to do that because I do want to know.
A lot of people are confused when it comes to what is government land and what is public land.
So tell us more about it.
Fine. So, the distinguishing feature between these 2 categories of land is the way you use and manage the land. And let me give you just a quick definition of how we define government land. Government land is defined, again, it's very short, as land that is owned by the government and used for the operations and facilities of government. That is, for the first time, government, meaning government agencies, government institutions, they will be coming as private. They will be coming as private actors.
Okay.
This that apply to a private person will basically be the same rules. They will have to go through the same processes to own government land, these institutions. And then public land is basically you in the residual category. Meaning, let's take for example, you have all these 4 categories of land. And then you take up private land from the land space. You take out government land, and then you take up customary land. Customary land, I will talk to that later on. What is left is the residual category. This is public land. But both of them are public assets that are owned by the government. It should have been the other way, but our law says that these assets are owned by the government. And then you have this new category we call customary land. This is revolutionary in the sense that we never had it before. This particular category gives the bulk of our people in the rural communities property rights. What these rural communities had before was use rights, not ownership rights. And then these rights are equated to that of private ownership rights. That is, once the community goes through the formalization process, the law provides that before these communities are given statutory deeds, they will have to go through certain steps and processes. We call it formalization. Once you are formalized, you are now in the position to basically exercise these rights that I talk about. You have the opportunity, especially through your CNDLC, that is the legal entity that will be established in each of these communities, to sit with concessions and discuss your issues with concessions, etc. So those are the four broad categories.
Let me drive your mind back. In April of this year, there was a consultative meeting held in Monrovia by the Liberia Land Authority. What was the outcome of that consultative meeting?
Well, I think you're making reference to the public consultation meeting that was held. Yeah, you are correct. I think about 2 weeks ago, the Bella Council voted.
Yeah, certainly.
The consultation was, or the objective of that particular public consultation was to gather the views, inputs, and comments of participants that were invited for the consultations on the draft regulations for the implementation of the Land Rights Act. As you may be aware, the Land Rights Act was approved or was enacted by the legislature in 2018, but it was a framework law. Once you have the law, you have to develop the regulations. And the regulations serve multiplicity of purposes. It provides basically clarity on the intent of the law. It provides opportunities, or it provides the mechanism for the enforcement of the law. So at the LIA, with the support of the World Bank, international and the national consultant were hired, sometimes about 2.5 years ago, to help us draft the regulations for the implementation of the LRA. Now, they came up to, after numerous reviews of these drafts, we then had the opportunity to go to that particular public consultations. The public consultations have ended. A report has been prepared, and that report has been circulated to the legal consultants. As I speak to you, they are in the process of incorporating those comments, those inputs that came from the participants into the draft. The draft then will be sent back to the LIA, and we are proposing to have a 1-day technical section, at which time we will then finalize the regulations. After the finalization of the regulations, there's another process that comes in. They will have to be adopted by the LIA Board of Commissioners. From there, we will then send them over to the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs. And from the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs, they will be sent to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for gazettement. That's the process. And I'm happy to note that we had a range of institutions, government institutions, institutions from the private sector, civil society that participated in these consultations. It was very inclusive and broad-based. So hopefully, as things are going, hopefully by the end of the month, we should be, or before the end of the month, we should be having this one-day validation consultations or meeting to finalize and complete the regulations. And then the next stage, of course, will be the process I just told you, the adoption, the gazettement, etc.
Folks, if you're just joining us, you are listening to the program Lens Matter here on Freedom FM 87.9 with me, Thomas Kujurola. Today we have the Executive Director of the Liberia Land Authority, Mr. Stanley, serving as our guest on this program. This program comes away every Wednesday from 3 to 4 where we discuss land-related issues to trying to bring you the happening when it comes to land matter to end land dispute in our country. And this program, the repeat comes away every Saturday from 7 to 8 p.m. We're taking a break. We'll come back. We'll continue the program Land Matter here with me. And then we have Stanley Told, the Executive Director, as our guest this afternoon. Not over this break to be back.
Marie, what happened?
Marie that my leo, my grandpa girl to be way chale kita. Nana le fit and where guess what thing you are trying to go for so le people need there they say la ne gele le. I know what to do, Maurice.
You hear what name matter here?
What they call name matter, Maurice?
Land Matter is a 1-hour program that explains to you the land right law, the Liberia Land Authority Act, including the Act against criminal practice or land, other land-related issues.
Hey, Maurice, the thing you talking, I want to say, they break it down. Hey, come to my
Land Matter, that program on Freedom FM 87.9. Every Wednesday at 3 p.m. When you change to that station that time, they can explain to you about the land rights law. Land law means the law that cover land. To tell you how you develop the They can also tell you about the Liberia Land Authority, meaning the real people that responsible for all the land beneath Liberia. They also talk about the criminal attitude in land, but not to be selling people there, so they can take people there and sell and get a fake deal. And they everything they will explain to you in all the land-related issues.
On Wednesday and during the weekend Saturday, if I put my radio on or if I call Freedom FM, the people will better explain to me because people that want play at home, the people will be able to
they will explain to you, they will give you change, will call you, ask them any question you're asking about your land beneath, whether somebody take name for you or you take name for somebody, any question they will answer you. You know, regulation and guidelines are key to peace and development in any country. So the Liberia Authority decide to have the program on the radio so that you can inform every Liberian about their land business because we tire every day we just opposite for the land, the opposite for the land. So the program is every Wednesday at 3 p.m. and a repeat will come on Saturday at 7 p.m. on Freedom FM 87.9.
Okay, thank you, Maureen. Thank you. Let me not go back my battery. Yeah, to listen to the Land Matter program. Thank you very, very much, my brother.
And don't forget, when you go, tell your friend to listen to Freedom FM every Wednesday at 3 p.m.
Yes.
Shut! They will be there to give you the information. You will ask your question. Any question you ask, you will ask the question. The thing that everybody business, we don't want land trouble in the country. Like God, land authority, come educate the Liberian people about the land business. So please bear the information.
Thank you, Maureen. Thank you, yeah.
Oh, yeah, welcome back to the program Land Matter here on Freedom FM 87.9. We stayed here with our guest this afternoon, Mr. Stanley Told. He's the Executive Director of the Liberia Land Authority. Mr. Told, it's always good to have you. Once again, we'll continue lots of discussion until otherwise I don't start to pick up call on the program. With the Liberia Land Rights Act being a framework document, we want to know what are some policies, procedure, and guidelines the Liberia Land Authority have developed to complement the Land Rights Act within our country.
A very good question. I'll talk about the regulations. The law has now been enacted and passed. We are concentrating right now on completing the regulation. From the regulation, we are then going to concentrate on developing these guidelines and procedures.
Okay.
But then, let me just come in. We came up with a number of draft guidelines and procedures. Take for instance, we came up with draft guidelines and procedures for the validation of travel certificate. We came up with draft guidelines and procedures for boundary harmonization and confirmatory survey. We also came up with draft guidelines for systematic tagging of customary land. But in our discussion at the LIA, we thought to concentrate first on the completion of the regulations. Initially, we are taught to do them together. So once the regulations are completed, which we expect will be completed by the end of the month, we will then get back to our technical sections and start finalizing these guidelines and regulations. We do not have time. The law was passed almost about 3 years ago, and Liberians are yearning for implementation. The expectations are very, very high, especially in the rural communities. Already, again, with the support of the World Bank, we are currently implementing what you call pilot registration of customary land. Remember, these are new things to Liberia. Other African countries have done this before, especially implementing customary or community land rights. And we have to pilot test the processes that we have in the law. I talk about the formalization process. There are 6 steps. How do you do this? So with the assistance, NGOs have been doing it, but we at the Land Authority were able to secure funding from the World Bank, and we'll be piloting these steps that I just told you about in 3 communities, in 4 communities in 3 counties. That process will begin in earnest sometime next week, and that will go until sometimes in September.
The 3 counties?
The 3 counties, one is Lofa, you have Bong, and you have Mangibi.
Why only 3 of them?
Well, there was a selection criteria that was developed. A technical team was set up. I think one of the key reasons is the prevalence of that land disputes, especially community land disputes in these areas. That was one of the reasons, but there are other multiplicity of reasons that do not have the information right now to give to the public. But be as it is, after the implementation of the pilots, we would then have an upskill strategy. The lessons learned from the pilots will inform the actual implementation. We already have our regulations that will eventually be approved by that particular time. So the ball will be in the court of the LIA. In fact, if you read the law establishing the Liberian Land Rights Act, specifically Section 71, it gave the authority to the Liberian Land Authority to promulgate regulations for the effective implementation of the LRA. But the Land Authority alone cannot do this. We have to have or adopt a one government approach. There are many institutions out there that have some land-related functions. We will be collaborating with them. We'll be collaborating even with civil society, because the focus right now, even the donors are focusing more on channeling their resources, their support to the civil society. So the civil societies will be working. They have been working along with the LIA. I think with the completion of the regulations, they will have that renewed energy and strength to start working along with us, because we are there to implement the law. But again, because of the constraints I told you about, and because of this collaboration being the hallmark of our work, we'll be working along with them to see how best we can implement the LRA.
This final question before we go to the line to start to pick up our colors this afternoon. There is this report from the MCC that shows the LAA The LLA have made serious mark. Do you care to tell us more about progress made, improvement and policy there?
Okay, I think when you talk about the MCC, you are talking about the Millennium Challenge Account or corporation. It's a private United States government corporation, and in most cases, as you are in the full-fledged state, they always give grants to developing countries to carry on economic activities. Liberia benefited tremendously under the Salif government, under the compact arrangement. I think some $251 million or so was secured from MCC funding. That went basically towards the hydro. It went to rural, I think, rehabilitation, and a couple of other things. And when the WIA government came, he decided to continue the process. And the LIA, in fact, was part of the last process under the Salif administration. They had an indicator that they had to do with land rights and assets. They still have a particular indicator. And through our efforts, that is through the rigorous outreach that we did with the support of our partners, you cannot leave them out. Sometimes last year, 2020, we had this robust nationwide awareness on the Land Rights Act and on the Liberia Land Authority. Our team was able to go to a number of selected communities in all the 15 counties of Liberia.
Okay.
The whole thing was publicized, not only nationally, but internationally on Facebook. And the MCC took note of the effort that was made in terms of publicizing the Land Rights Act. So that contributed in large part to Liberia making remarkable progress in school in the area of land rights under the MCC.
Okay, folks, it is time for you to form part of the program. Call us on 0776 104 104, 0776 104 104, 0886 500 104, 0770 297016, and be a part of the program. Lands Matter here on Freedom FM 87.9. I'm trying to get this person from the other side of the line. Let's get this person. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Your name and where have you joined us from?
Okay, my name is David Somo Jion, but I'm popular known in Shara community as GR100.
Welcome to Land Matter.
Thank you so much. I've been following the analysis and listening to your speeches. I'm a project owner in both in Tuporo and Shara community.
Okay.
But since in the 20s, at that time, I don't know, maybe you will correct me, if we had something was established. But what I want to know right now is if you want to buy land from anywhere, do I supposed to come to the land commissioner to get any information before buying the land, or I can go out there and buy the land?
Okay. You'll respond to that, Chief. Thank you. Call us on 0776 104 104, 0776 104 104, 0886 500. Look at this person from this side. Hello.
Good afternoon to your speaking guest.
Your name and where have you joined us from?
My name is Sekou Aminadabuna, and I joined this party conversation from Central Barovia.
Welcome, Sekou.
And let me appreciate your studio guest for his elaboration. But basically, I have three concerns on the topic under discussion. One has to do with under the Liberian Land Rights Act. It is the government of Liberia to buy private land for the use of government function. One. Two, can the private citizen buy government-owned property or land in Liberia? And lastly, I am of the opinion that it is wrong to build on solid land or to buy land on some. What is the Liberian Land Authority doing to mitigate this issue of people buying solid land campaign on some land. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, a lot journalist Sekou Aminata Kone for joining us. Call us on 0776 104 104 0776 104 104 0886 500 104. I get this person. Hello.
Yeah, hello, sir.
Your name, where you join us from?
I'm Richard Powison. I'm calling for my TV country.
Richard, welcome.
Yeah, my concern has to do with this water right issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The first thing about me, a property that was owned by my mother for years ago. And then this property has been turned over to me, but it is all government thing.
Okay.
That we all know it that used to be squatters right before.
Mm-hmm.
So when the guy in studio made measure of all those four categories, he did not speak about squatters right.
Okay.
So I just want him to briefly explain to me and based on squatters right, how I can regularize and pay taxes.
Okay, Chief. All right, boss. Look at this person from this person here. Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Your name, where you join us from?
This is Jordan Matari calling from Bonapa.
Welcome, Masani.
Thank you for your spirit, guest. I want to know that when you buy land, you and somebody have boundary. And the person say you not sell it back. It means both of you will go and call the surveyor to come survey the place, or the person will not sell it back.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're squeezing the last person this afternoon. Hello. Your name, where you join us from? Go ahead. 30 seconds. Okay, thank you, Chief. Well, thanks to all of the callers. Due to time, we can take more calls on the program. You listen to all of the callers. Too many concerns. One person we want to know about the issue if somebody can buy government land, if it is possible, then the issue of Swami land. What are you guys doing to curtail, or what are you guys doing to mitigate the issue of people buying Swami land? Because the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, is against people buying wetland. What are you guys doing when it comes to such? Another person is asking if they want to buy land, can they go to the Liberia Land Authority before buying the land, or they can just go ahead and buy their land? Another person is asking about the issue of boundary. Two persons having land, boundary, misunderstanding. If one person can be surveyor to survey the land. We'll have to wrap up. We're out of time, so let's do it in less than 3 minutes on that.
Well, those were issues that they brought about.
Mm-hmm.
We do not have the time now, but what I would advise, we have the relevant sections at the LIA. I do not want to give information right now that might more or less contradict what we have laid down on the book. So I will encourage the callers, especially those that wanted to find out information concerning the purchase of private land. The procedures are laid out. You can come over to the Liberia Land Authority. We are situated on Ashmont Street, the old Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Our technical staff will be there starting from our Customer Services Center to provide you the basic information, even on the issue of squatters' rights. Currently at the LIA, our Land Policy and Planning Department, they are coming up with guidelines and procedures concerning squatters' rights. So, all in all, even the issues pertaining to boundary, we have a Department of Land Administration that takes care of boundary issues. They will be able to give the specifics. Because of time constraints, I cannot go into these, but I will encourage everybody. This is why the LIA is called your one-stop shop for land matters. If you have any concerns, if you have any issues, we are right downtown. Please come over to the Land Authority and we'll be able to provide you with the basic information. In fact, before you even enter, the office of the land authority, you will see a number of billboards. And on those billboards are basic information pertaining to the survey of your land, pertaining to how you acquire your land as a private person. All that information is still
There are some people who are living far away from Monrovia. Some of them live in Maikibi. Some of them live in Nima. They are followers of this radio program. The distance for them to come from Nima to Monrovia is going to be too hard for them to come. Do you people have specific number that somebody living in Lofa can just call and know something about the land authority, that they're having some confusion at home, they really want to settle their land dispute?
Yes, our customer services section have a number. Next week we'll be appearing on the show and we'll give more details on this. But in addition to what you just indicated, the services that the LIA provides, we will be having, or we have teams in the counties. Whenever you need clarification on some of these issues, especially if you are living outside of Monrovia, I will urge you to go to our local county offices. They have all this information. Those information, all those issues that they cannot address, they can always make reference to central office.
What about Liberians who are living in the diaspora? They have their land back at home, but there are crises with the land issues. We'll talk about way to mitigate land crisis. Number that they can reach out to you on. Someone could stay in France and just call you, want to know about their land problem here?
That has been happening. That has been happening through our customer services center. But we will have the assistant director for customer services. She will be appearing on the show.
Okay, next
Wednesday, and she will give you the specifics in terms of the specific numbers to access.
Okay. We all have time. Just 1 minute to go. 30 seconds. We can take your parting comments.
Well, the only thing as I leave is to first of all extend my thanks and appreciation to the management for this opportunity. Second, to our listening audience, as I indicated, the Liberian Land Authority was established to look at some of these issues pertaining to land. We are there at your disposal when you have any problem, although there might be some bottlenecks. But do not get frustrated. Come over to the Liberian Land Authority. We'll be able to help you.
Thank you very much. We hope that we can have more of you coming here on the program Land Matter. Well, folks, we'd love to say many thanks to all of you for joining us. The repeat of this program will be this Saturday, 7 p.m. Wednesday, we'll get a fresh edition of the program Land Matter. Until then, my name is Thomas Kojo. Do have yourself a very pleasant time from the nation's capital, Monrovia.
Marie,